Hello and welcome back everyone to Neri Nekuma, this time with the second part of A Lifelong Promise. I know, this is maybe a bit unexpected because, well, the first part of this premiered like almost 2 years ago, but we're not talking about that, so yeah, at least that means hope for every series that I haven't finished yet, because I might in the future. And yeah, some people, just a few people really, have been asking for the next part for this. Also recently, which is a pleasant surprise that you still love and like are interested in this series. I'm very happy. So here we go, second part. Thank you for all your patience. Also, if any of you who originally commented this are still watching this channel and this series, I'd be super curious to hear from you in the comments again. I hope you will like the second part. I hope it is all you wanted, and it will have a third part, which, depending on when that one comes out, is either good news or bad news. Coming home felt weird, as though what happened lay in the very atmosphere around them. Just knowing that Osamu wouldn't suddenly show up from around the corner, chastising or teasing him for something, made the house feel empty. It was as if their usually lively, colorful home had been painted grey overnight, as though a washed-out filter had been put over Atsumu's vision. Atsu? Sakusa's voice sounded far away, although he was standing right next to him. Atsumu hadn't noticed how long he had stood frozen at the step to the genkan before the ace gently placed a hand on his shoulder. I'm okay. His voice sounded hollow and loud to his own ears, even though it must have been barely more than a whisper. All his senses appeared to be distorted and unreliable at the moment. How much, he noticed as he took his next step and suddenly wavered. The room swayed briefly, and he heard the surprised shout of his name next to him as Sakusa reached out to catch him and stabilize him by his side. The blonde still hadn't processed what had happened, as his eyes were glued to the ground, which was suddenly replaced by images of Osamu in the hospital bed, lifeless and pale, hooked up to what felt like a dozen machines monitoring his every breath and keeping him alive. He couldn't unsee it. He was sure even if it all turned out well, which it had to, there was simply no other option. That image would still be burned into his memory indefinitely. How do you cope with almost losing someone who was with you from the first breath you took? No, even before that. Their souls were inevitably intertwined, and Atsumu refused to be separated from his brother. Somehow Sakusa managed to guide him, apathetic as he was at the moment, over to the couch. He helped him sit down and silently took place next to him. He didn't say anything, and really, what could he have said? He was just there. And after a while, he pulled Atsumu into his arms hesitantly. The setup barely reacted. The only indicator that it was appreciated was him easing ever so slightly into the touch. He needed this, but was too far gone to ask for it. Yet somehow, the ace understood. It would be a long, crucial night. If Osamu survived the next 24 hours, his chances weren't abysmal anymore at the very least. Suna couldn't sleep. His body desperately needed him to rest, and sleep was simultaneously refusing to do so. He lay in his hospital bed in an empty room, staring at the ceiling. It hurt. Being awake hurt. Being aware hurt more. His wounds ached. It sometimes even caused an involuntary whine to slip under his breath. but he refused to call a nurse and ask for more painkillers. His thoughts were with his boyfriend. His mind played the scene on repeat in his head, and if he could have done anything to prevent it. The results were inconclusive and unsatisfying. All that he knew for sure was that Osamu saved him, consciously or not. He doubted he would have survived the head-on collision he would have been faced with hadn't the silver-haired intervened. Atsumu's words echoed in his head on repeat. Samu saved you for a reason. He loves you, and he wouldn't be able to live with himself had he not saved you. He swallowed hard. His vision that should have been nothing but the white ceiling appearing to be a bluish grey in the night was red, as if it had been permanently tainted by Osamu's blood. Suddenly the door clicked open, and Suna frowned as his head turned to the side. Was it early enough already for the 5 to 6 a.m. checkup? Hushed voices echoed from the hall, and he tried sitting up a bit to see what was going on. His chest ached and protested the motion. After the painkillers wore off, he felt his bruised side more clearly, almost as if he could pinpoint the harness fractures on his ribs precisely as they radiated hot, searing pain. It quickly challenged his decision not to request more painkillers, but that all became irrelevant as he saw what transpired before him. A bed was pushed into his room, and even in the dim light of the hallway and the window that painted the room in milky moonlight, he recognized the silver hair immediately. His heart stopped as he saw him. Having been put on bed rest due to the injuries to his head and ribs he sustained, this was the first time since the accident he saw Osamu. He had actually been looking forward to finally visiting him tomorrow after the doctor cleared him for a little walk under supervision as promised. He had expected to meet Atsumu and Miya-san by the glass separating them from the younger twin. He had expected an onslaught of guilt and worry seeing him hooked up to a bunch of machines, had been mentally preparing for that image he could never truly be prepared for, and lean on Kira for support, who still visited him at least once a day, while assuring him that Aaron, who was the main reason he visited, was fine. It had been a confusing storm of events following the accident, and for the first time in his life, Suna was limited in his ability to acquire information, and it had been driving him mad. But now, Osamu was right here, and he froze. Shock washed over him as he took in the scene in front of him. He knew that it had been arranged for them to share a room once Osamu was stable, yet he hadn't expected it so soon. Hope sparked in his chest, and he caught himself nervously assessing his state. He had a couple of scratches on his arms and face that had already begun to heal over. Bandages were wrapped around his hands, undoubtedly from being dragged over the asphalt, ending up ripping the skin open on the surface. He was still connected to an IV, but the extensive wiring Atsumu had described to him, while looking visibly green in the face, was gone. Logically, the worst was covered by the blanket draped over him carefully. Immediately, Suna was back there, on the ground as his clothes were drenched in cold rain. It created a stark contrast to the warmth of Osamu's blood that dripped onto him from where the metal piece had pierced his stomach. It was nauseating just thinking about it. Yet, he was here now. That was a good sign, right? Suna-kun, shouldn't you be asleep? The nurse chastised him softly, quietly as not to disturb Osamu, which must mean he could wake up. He would wake up. He was asleep, not in a coma anymore. He would... Suna-kun? Suna sniffled. He hadn't even noticed the tears assembling in his eyes, but suddenly they were overflowing with relief. He'll be alright now, right? Yes, don't worry, dear. He's stable now, which is why he was transferred from the ICU and is now your new roommate for the time being. He should wake up given time. We'll monitor him closely for the next couple of hours to make sure everything is alright. She offered him a small smile as Osamu's bed was fixed in place, just a few steps from him. The moon highlighted the contours of his face, and Suna saw how his chest moved, and how he stirred ever so slightly in his sleep. It was as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He adjusted his position once more and flinched, letting out an involuntary whine. The nurse picked up on it immediately and rushed over to check on him. How are you feeling? I'm fine. She looked at him skeptically and performed some basic vital checks with his consent. Honey, I'm sure your boyfriend wouldn't appreciate it for you to be in pain if it was avoidable. It is not good for your recovery to put extra stress on your body. He gritted his teeth. Something inside him wanted to refuse the medication, as if saying Atsumu had to suffer much more, so he shouldn't complain. Perhaps he even deserved this for having to be saved by him and causing all of this. But he knew she was right, and that if Osamu heard him say that out loud, he'd get smacked, before he'd be crushed by the spiker's embrace. He wouldn't let go of him until Suna admitted he was wrong. He longed for that, to feel Osamu's arms around him again. Ultimately, upon being lectured on how it was dangerous not to report his pain and take the medication because his lungs wouldn't fully expand if met with pain due to breathing, causing him to potentially lose part of them if it went on for too long, he accepted the painkillers. The relief was almost instant as the meds kicked in and he let out a sigh, followed by an experimental deep breath. It still hurt, but it was bearable. Slowly, he sank back into the pillows and watched Osamu from his bed. He looked ethereal, illuminated by the white moonlight, but also pale. Suna couldn't look away, too afraid that it would turn out to be a dream if he did. Or worse, that this small moment of solace would turn out to be volatile. Samu. He drifted off to sleep despite his efforts as the exhaustion took hold of him. Slowly he slipped into dreams that for the first time in days were peaceful. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss out on anything in the future, like the next part of it. I don't think you will have to wait for the next one as long as you had to wait for this one, because I already started writing it, and yeah, it should be up soon. I don't know when, but soon. Let's go with soon. Soon sounds good. Also, check out in the description, there's a link to my GoFundMe for my top surgery. Check that out if you want to support me. And here are my nerdy neckos who support this channel so much in general. Thank you so much. Here are my other social media. They're most active here on YouTube, which is why you should definitely click on one of these videos showing up here in the end screen. And tell me your favorite quote from this video under the pinned comment. And now I hope you have a wonderful and amazing day. Bye!
Step 4. Everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.